co-main event. What'd you think of that one? You know what I mean? Like completely. I think most
Completely
people
different fight.
expect,
Completely
yeah,
different fight.
people expected it to be different than how it panned out, and everybody knew where Aljamain's strengths were, right? Takedowns,
Like
get to the back.
that's the ability of time though. Like you have the ability to process it. Like a lot. I feel like when the fight first got matched up, there was like bad timing for Sterling. I feel like the fight would have gone exactly the way the first fight went, or even worse because it was just bad timing. You could see at the time, like Aljamain, Sterling couldn't deal with the fan reaction that he had from that whole ordeal. Like, which, in my opinion, like the guy did nothing wrong. You know what I mean? Like the guy did absolutely nothing wrong. Like he gets kneed in the head, gets concussed. You can't continue to fight. Like he's done nothing wrong. Like he should have just gone out there and just said, "Look, what do you want me to do? Like carry on fighting? Be a tough guy, carry on fighting. I'm already concussed. Like the guy punches me half the time, I'm gonna fall over and get knocked out. You can't fight if the guy did an illegal strike and concussed you, right? Like you get the belt. It's not your fault. Give him the rematch and run it back. You know what I mean? But that initial fan reaction that he got was kind of he was not dealing with it well. You could see by that, like he was getting a bit irked by it. He was obviously dealing with like the physical side of things, like his neck was giving him trouble. He had to have neck surgery, so I think that time away definitely changed things. Over that time, he had a bit more time to process like the fan reaction, and then so he started having fun with it, playing a bit more of a heel, and enjoying it. He had the neck surgery, which sorted out his physical, which you'll understand that when you're physically injured, like things get to you mentally a lot more. Like when you're physically feeling sharp and good, your mental, like they're one and the same. Your just your physicality and your mentality are one and the same. Like they feed off each other. So I feel like just that amount of time, he was able to sort his injury out. I saw him at the PI, every day, and he was working through that neck injury. He was doing everything right to get himself back to 100%. So then just having that time um, changed things. You know what I mean? You could see it on the scales when he weighed in. Like physically, he looked a lot better than he's ever looked. Like physically imposing, mentally in a better place. And the only reason that is just time. Like the time shifted the weight of that fight, and he went out there, and we saw a completely different fight than the first one because just his mentality and his physicality had completely changed from that first exchange. You could see it like in the first fight. It went out. Peter Yan was the champ. Sterling was the challenger. Sterling went out like super tense and tried to force everything in that first fight. Like he tried to force the takedown, tried to force the striking. And Yan was able to just sit back and counter and this and that. But then the dynamic also had completely shifted in the second fight where Sterling was now the champ. Jan had to now come and take the belt off Sterling, which you could see they touched gloves, and then Jan's the one pressuring forwards and forcing the fight, and then Sterling was the one able to sit back and counter and defend and take the back, and so just the dynamic, the timing, everything had completely changed from that fight. And at this elite level, like the smallest things can have a huge difference. So these are some pretty big adjustments and some pretty big shifts in the timeline of everything.
It is, man. When you look at Aljamain and like what he went through in the last year or so, it's a lot of shit to go through. You know, for a fighter to go through like a major surgery, and then you got all this backlash from winning a title. People are saying you're not the real champ. You know, you're a paper champ, whatever. And then you got Peter Yan, who actually goes out during that time, wins the fight, wins the interim belt. You know what I mean? And kind of builds his stock more and more and more. And then you're kind of dwindling down. You know, and of course you stay in the media with what you do, but I think winning solves everything. I mean, all that stuff that was happening.
Of
Once you
course.
win, it's over, man. It's like you're in the record books with the W, with the belt. That's all that matters. Now it's Peter Yan's time to build himself back up now. You know what I mean? Like and fight him again because
Yeah,
I see
like
them
he
fighting.
called for a rematch. Yeah, I think
Mhm,
they'll fight again, but he calls for a rematch. I feel like he's got to beat someone
mhm.
to get himself another rematch. I'm not sure. I think they'll do the Sterling Dillashaw fight. I feel like
Yeah, that's a
that's
fun
a
fight.
like to that's a sellable fight. Like when you
Mhm.
go to the UFC with a fight, with a title fight that you want to do, it needs a storyline, right? Like then you watch a countdown, there needs to be a story. It can't just be
Mhm.
like, oh, these two guys, yeah, they're all right. They just want to have a fight for like heaps of money. Like it's not. It needs a story. You know what I mean? And they found a guy in Sterling that will call Dillashaw out on the drug cheating.
Yeah,
Dillashaw will take it and kind of
yeah.
fight back and roll with it. Like that's the story of that fight, right?
Uh-huh.
Like that's this guy says this guy, oh, they hate each other. Oh, now boom, like the storyline blows out of proportion for that fight, and that's what gets the UFC to approve something, give it the tick, and give it the green light. So I feel like just from that perspective of that fight being very marketable, that they're gonna put that Dillashaw Sterling fight together.
The failed drug test that's gonna always be part of every countdown. I think TJ Dillashaw does because every opponent is gonna point to that as something that they can attack. You know what I
But
mean? I don't.
that wasn't excusable.
It
There's no
wasn't.
excuse for that, brother. Like
Yeah.
EPO, like you're joking. Like and don't say that it's the first time. You know what I mean? You can't come to me and say like, oh, you know what? I waited until USADA got brought into play. We were getting blood tests and blood passports done on all of us, and then I decided to try EPO for the first time. Like, brother, like that's so. Fun fact: EPO is only detectable in your
Yeah.
blood passport. So USADA need to come and take blood like 2, 3 times and get like because everyone's blood is different, right? Like some
Mhm.
people have higher growth hormone, some people's testosterone is naturally higher than others. So they need to take your blood like 2 or 3 times and get like your average. So if they see a dip in that or a spike in that, they'll be able to tell. You know what I mean? Um, Before USADA was in play, let's say if it was just the Nevada State Athletic Commission, like no blood testing, so they wouldn't blood test you. Growth hormone, EPO, the two hardest steroids out there, only detectable in blood. So every fighter could be on EPO and HDH, human growth hormone, and it never be detected before USADA got brought into play. So you're going to tell me that it's undetectable, you're not going to take it, you start getting USADA tested, this becomes detectable, and now you're going to try it for the first time or start taking it? Like, get out of here, man. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. This doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's also like something that is extremely expensive. You know what I mean? It's not like something that you could just go buy off somebody with with a $1,500 a month job. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
something that
no,
costs
no,
some
no.
cash. So
No, no,
yeah,
no.
it's very high, like advanced, I guess. In that community of
Very
like
advanced.
EPO and all that.
He's got a very, yeah, yeah. He's got a very smart person telling him to do, oh, take this at this time, this. Like, I was feeling a bit tired from flyweight. Like, nah, come on, cuz. Come on, cuz. Now you
But
lying.
he served his time. Now he's gonna get a title shot, most likely, against Aljo.
Serve this time, but you have to eat that for the rest of
Yeah.
your career, right?
Oh,
Like you have to
he's gonna eat it
your
and he's gonna
label.
milk it, and the UFC is gonna milk it
He doesn't
as
seem
much
to
as they
care.
can.
Like
No, he
Dillashaw,
doesn't.
yeah, Dillashaw
Yeah.
doesn't seem to care, bro.
It's not like he's crying himself to sleep thinking about that. I don't believe
Nah, I
that's the
think he's
case.
over it. I think he would
Yeah.
have. I think he would have. He seemed like, yeah, yeah, the double shoulder surgery, which is a
Yeah.
difficult thing. Like I was saying, like if you're physically, he's like physically not there, so I'm sure that would have been like a super tough time for him. But yeah, like you could see when he came back, he's just embraced that role. He doesn't really
Mhm.
care about any of that,
Yeah.
and he's pushing forward and moving on.
Yeah. I think that's probably the way to do it. You know what I mean? Because you fucked up. So, people are going to
That's
talk
the way
shit.
to do it.
Yeah.
If
And
you're
just,
gonna take EPO, just
yeah. He has a history of that, though. He takes the snake thing and turns it into his logo. That's what TJ does,
yeah,
man. That's what TJ
yeah.
does. The Yeah, so with Aljo, I guess TJ is gonna be next. Who do you put him? Who do you put Jan against? Like, what is a matchup that you would like to see? Guy at
Who
bantamweight.
else is a bantamweight? Send me some. Who's another bantamweight? He just fought Sandhagen.
Yeah, he
Who's
fought
top five?
Sandhagen. Well, you got like I think Font's fighting soon. Is Font bantamweight? Yeah, Font's bantamweight.
Yeah, Fonta
Um,
bantamweight.
I thought Font would have been a good
He
matchup. Let's
fuck. I don't know. Way.
Okay.
I don't know.
You
Way.
got
Like he's already fought Aldo.
Cruz. Would you like to see him fight Dominic Cruz?
I don't think Cruz wants that smoke. He's too
All
smart
right.
for that. You know what I mean?
Like whenever like a fighter like Jan, right? He goes on this streak and he's just beating guys after guys after guys, and then you get like an Aljo to come in and implement a style and a game plan to beat him. Do you think like fighters get exposed? Are they exposed now? Do you feel like, or is it just Aljo was
You're
able to
only
do it?
you're only exposed if you can't make any adjustments. I feel like a couple of adjustments and that fight changes big time. Like it's like that's the advantage of um, a rematch, right? It's like the one that had success in the first fight. It's then the advantage of the rematch is the guy that didn't have the success because he's the one that can make the adjustments when they fight for a third time, then it's going to be PDN. I feel like with the advantage because he's going to, man, if his worked on that back escape a bit more, it's like he definitely worked on a back escape where he was kicking that leg back, but it just didn't work against Aljo. So maybe like add two or three more options, maybe two more options for his body triangle like back escape, and then also that takedown where he was kicking that leg back, sprawling, but Aljo was able to cut the angle and have the hook in to take the back already placed. Like that's from studying film. Like those are
Yeah.
some pretty small adjustments that would make a huge difference. Like imagine if Aljo couldn't sit on his back for 6 minutes of the fight. Like that changes that fight a lot. Like that changes that fight massively. So I feel like there's no way that he's been exposed or anything like that. I feel like some couple small adjustments, and he'll be good to go again for sure. But it does, losing and being exposed as you will only works if you can't adjust.
Mhm.
Like if you can't adjust, if like a hole in your game gets found and exploited, and you can't change it or you can't adjust it, then of course. But most fighters have the ability to change it or
Mhm.
adjust it or improve it or go away and work on that facet of your game.
And some of them, I guess, they take a little bit longer than others to make those adjustments. Some guys come back the next fight and know exactly what they made their mistakes on, make those adjustments. So whenever they get in those positions, they could, they know how to react to it much better than they would like the last fight. Other fighters, it takes a little bit longer, right? Like 2, 3, 4 fights. You have to wait until you see those types of improvements or adjustments. That's what I like to see sometimes is when fighters uh, they lose, but they know why they lost, and then the next fight to see how they return against a completely different style of fighter that they're facing from the previous fight, and show those adjustments in that fight, which is I don't think a lot of people look at it like that, but I sometimes I like to see that with fighters. But yeah, it was a very close fight. You know, if you could go back and think about the rounds, right? Did you feel like Aljo won 3 rounds? Like if you could pick the 3 rounds, was any 10-8 rounds, do you think?
That's pretty big. Depends. Were they fighting under the new rules or the old rules? Like new rules, you give out 10-8s like a lot easier, right?
I have no idea like if they what rules that they use. I don't
It's so
even
hard to
care.
follow. Like, that's like hard to follow. Like whether they're
Yeah.
fighting under the new rules or old rules, or like because they're supposed to give out 10-8s like a lot easier under the
Yeah.
new rules, and they do that. Like it's so hard to keep track of and follow. Like most fight fans just actually don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there was a lot of control time in the second and third round just from those back takes and those body control. Maybe even the second round you're going to be handing out a 10-8. But I feel like Aljamain took the first, second, and third. This is from like first watch.
Mhm.
Don't get overly angry. But I'll take Sterling in the first, second, and third.
Okay.
Peter Yan in the fourth and fifth.
And that's what I talked to some fighters and even coaches about is like, how do you beat Peter Yan? And it's to win the first 3 rounds because you know he's going to come out in the fourth and fifth hard and heavy. So if you you win the first 3 and you survive the last 2, you'll be able to beat him on the cards. Because I don't really see anybody. I'm not going to say any. I don't really see anybody finishing Peter Yan, but Peter Yan is a guy that is tough to
I'd say
finish.
there's fighters that you can do that, like take the first 3 and then like stall the last 2. But
Mm-hmm.
Petr Yan is like such a hard guy to stall a fight against. Like he's so aggressive, like his pressure is so smart, like the way he moves in and out of distance and chips away, and like his pressure is incredible. So yeah, he's not like that was super difficult for Sterling. Like Sterling's plan and obviously that the result of the way that he was killing the pressure was to shoot. Like that is exhausting. Like how many takedowns? Like 22 takedown attempts that he had.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Like he probably shot 50 times. Like they weren't counting a lot of those as like actual attempts, but like that's how he was killing Petr Yan's pressure ability to come forward was just shoot. And he shot constantly for 25 minutes. Like that is incredibly exhausting. I would say most other fighters in the division, I'd say pretty much everyone else in the division, like can't rely on that as an option. Like they just don't have the wrestling ability, the defense off of the shot, the cardio to keep up with that pace. Like that was impressive. It was a very impressive performance to watch.
Yeah, he was in incredible shape, and he used every piece of that octagon. Yeah, just even like for me, if I went out there and did 22 takedown attempts on a guy trying to defend it, I would be dead. I probably wouldn't even make it to 22. I probably wouldn't even make it to 10, right? Like
Oh,
22 and
hard, hard. It's hard. That's hard.
yeah, it's
That's
hard.
hard.
Yeah.
Like good hard. That's 22 solid takedown attempts. They're not even counting like the half shots he took in and
Yeah.
grabbed a leg or something like that.
He did really well with like switching from double to single or single to double. Like he kind of he did,
Yeah.
like you said, he did a lot of film study on Peter Yan and how he defends takedowns and stuff, and execution, man.
Have to at
Phenomenal.
that level. Like at that level, that's like one thing people don't understand. Like the amount of film study that
Mhm.
goes into these things, like picking up tendencies of your opponents, is it's funny. Like when people sit back and they're just like, why didn't you just like? It's like fuck me days. Like I've just watched 1,000 hours of this guy. Like my coaches have spent 20,000 hours studying this guy. Like we say, oh, why didn't you just take him down? It's like fuck.
Thank you guys for watching the video to the end. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out. We got a lot of things in the works, so please stay tuned.